Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the first ever 8th episode of Baseball versus the World, a podcast about how baseball relates to the world and how the rest of the world relates to baseball, part of the Just Baseball Media Network, a very, very good website and network. I'm your host and guide on this maiden voyage through the vast cosmos of all things baseball, Javier Reyes, staff writer here at justbaseball.com, as well as the host of the Locked On Padres podcast. 8th episode, crazy. Haven't been canceled yet. But folks, of course, as always, I'm never alone. I'm being joined by another one of, dare I say, the Just Baseball Illuminati. You know, the head honchos over here at Just Baseball. It is the analytics, partnerships, all sorts of stuff, and staff writer at Just Baseball. It is Colby Olson, Red Sox lunatic as well. Should be part of your title. How you doing, man?
Doing well, man. I mean, when you asked me, you haven't really introed what this episode is about, so I don't want to spoil it. But when you asked me to come on for today's episode, I got very, very excited. I've been listening to your episodes, and I just love that you're doing something different from a podcast perspective and how it relates to baseball, and I love it, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The rare praise from the guest. Arm Layton certainly didn't do that last week. My gosh. But guys, we're going to get into this one because we have a lot to talk about. This week is going to be, we're doing the best baseball movie scenes, and we did top 6. Why did we do top 6? Not really sure, but Colby put 6, and I was like, all right, we're doing 6. We're doing 6 because, like you just said, we try to be different on this podcast. Everyone does top 5. So, in fact, I think that was a great idea. So we decided we're taking it up a notch. We're doing top 6 baseball movie scenes, but it won't just end there. We will also be doing some nominees. It won't be the main topic, but we're going to talk about our favorite non-baseball scenes in baseball movies, and then the reverse, the best baseball scenes in movies that are very much not about baseball. Frankly, the latter category, I think that there is an easy winner, and it can't be contested. And then we'll do honorable mentions for all of these categories as well. So it's going to be a blast. Get your thinking movie cinema heads, your caps on, open up the Letterbox app, folks. You know what I mean? And let's go, man. Let's start with number 6. We both, by the way, have each individual top 6, and anyone listening or viewing, you could vote on which ones you think is better. You could do that. That'd be fun. But since Colby's the guest, he is the guest of honor, the esteemed guest of honor. Colby, what's your number 6 best baseball movie scene of all time?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I want to just talk about how lucky we are as baseball fans to no other sport has as many good movies as baseball. There are so many good baseball movies that there was a lot to choose from here. So narrowing it down to even 6 was tough. I think we could have done a top 10 pretty easily here. But, it's kind of just picking your favorite from each of your favorite movies. So I'll start as the Red Sox fan. You hyped me up. Fever Pitch. We're going to start with Fever Pitch. There's many good scenes in this movie. It's probably a movie I've seen 15 or 20 times in my life. I remember as a kid driving on road trips with my little portable DVD player, in the back seat watching, I only had probably 5 or 6 DVDs, and I would watch Fever Pitch over and over again. What a great movie. Jimmy Fallon making his, being an actor, which you don't really see him do a lot. And the funny thing is that Jimmy Fallon is a Yankee fan in real life. So it is very ironic. I actually met Jimmy Fallon last year in New York City, and I actually gave him some shit for that. I was like, you made Fever Pitch and you are a diehard Yankees fan. Like, do you ever get shit for that? Like, I'm going to give you shit. And he laughed about it. It was pretty funny. Nice guy. Anyways, the best scene in that movie, in my opinion, is when Jimmy Fallon is out to dinner and he's doing he's going to watch the Red Sox game later when the next day, because he has it on tape, but he's out to dinner on a date, and he walks out of the restaurant and he hears the game on the radio at the valet, and he goes la 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 la, because he doesn't want to hear what the game outcome is going to be. So he gets home, and he's in bed with the love interest, and he gets a call from his buddy who's at the game, and it's screaming in the streets, the Red Sox came back. They were down 9 runs in the 9th inning, and they came all the way back. There's people singing and dancing in the streets. They're kissing babies out here. Everybody's the world's biggest Congo line, and he just has this horror, and he starts sweating, and he's like, I missed the game. And so then after that, he goes into hibernation mode in his apartment. There's like tinfoil on the blind on the windows, so no light gets in, and he's just watching like the 1986 game where the ball goes through his legs, and like just watching all these bad Red Sox moments, and he has a complete meltdown. And it is just pure baseball degenerate fandom at
Hmm.
its finest, and hyperbolic, and just an incredible scene.
Hmm. It is such a movie of its time, and not just because of the two stars, Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore, who have both have talk shows now. So that's a fun little bit there. For me, it does depend on how much you like the Red Sox. I think that's what takes this movie to another level. I still think you can enjoy it. It's really dumb. And I don't mean that like in a derogatory way. It actually made, for those who are curious, you could go check out on that lovely website, justbaseball.com, my personal top 10 baseball movies ever. There's so much wrong. I have so many issues. It's not necessarily all that dynamic. Is there a little bit of of course, like the guy's dream girl is someone who's gonna love him despite his weird, stupid stuff that gets in the way of his life, but it doesn't fully, because see, that's one thing that they show about him early on, is that he's well put together. He's fine. Like he knows how to balance it. There's so many issues with it. And as a hater of Boston, of course I'm gonna have some hatred of it. But it's just so cheesy. And I agree with you. The degenerate fandom, I think, is a real thing that makes this movie more rewatchable for sports fans, especially. I think that's what does it. And the two of them have really good chemistry. You could just boil this down to, hey, guess what? If you get really good two stars and leads that have chemistry, that's how you make a rom com, and then you're set. Even if it's not, Pulp Fiction, like you're going to be set. So, a solid choice, even if aggressively homerism on your part to start
Totally.
off this
I had to fit that
podcast.
in there. Well, you know what's interesting? Last tidbit on this is I was researching this movie before coming on here, and they were expecting the Red Sox to lose in the playoffs. And so they
Mm,
actually had to rewrite the
yes.
script for
Mhm.
when they won the World Series, which is an interesting little tidbit. But regardless, yeah, a fun movie.
Question for you: do the themes of the movie hit better if the Red Sox was that World Series?
No, I kind of love that they get to go
Okay.
to the World Series and have
Okay.
this little happy ending.
Yeah. I'm just wondering. I really want to know, like, if that fits a little bit of the theme of the movie better. But also, happy endings are also always dope, except for when they come at the expense of the last remaining democracy in sports that year, the Yankees, compared to the filth, I think, from Boston, as you know. I'll stop now, though. I'm just kidding around. My number 6, folks, is from a movie that not enough people saw. Um, it's a movie that I've been pushing lately. It's been my new thing because I have been early on a couple things in my life. When I was 2, the PlayStation 2. My dad got me that thing, and I was big on all the Jack and Daxters and whatnot. I was big on Mac Miller before some of his best music came out. I was big on that. I was big on some things that didn't end up well, but my biggest one, most of all, is my guy, Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell, who is now an A-lister and very easy to root for, very good at moving his face. I will say, just really good facial actor. Um, I've been on board. This is a guy who has been part of your life for a very long time. And I'm talking, you remember Spy Kids 3? Anyone out there? You know the nerdy kid who keeps telling him, hey, that's the guy. That was Glenn Powell. This guy has been working from the absolute depths of Hollywood, and 20 years later, he's a movie star. And in my opinion, easily, this is his breakout movie. Everybody wants some. It is a spiritual successor to Dazed and Confused, one of my favorite movies of all time, directed by Richard Linklater, same director for Dazed. And it's a baseball movie in a lot of ways, but it's also a hangout movie for the majority of it. But in the DNA of the movie, it's about being teammates. It's about getting along with each other, and of course, baseball. So for me, my number 6 scene of all time is the first team practice that they have, where they have a really good soundtrack. You've got all the weirdos pitching. The one guy has to leave. He gets pulled all away by an administrator, and you don't know why yet. And that I'll say for people who haven't seen the movie. You also get the one player on the team who's clearly better than everybody else. That dynamic when you know you're playing on a team when you're younger, and you know there's that one kid who's top dog. You know what I mean? And that's one character in this movie. He hits a home run off the guy that's talking stuff, and he says, "Hey, go get that ball, freaking sign it for you." And that line lives in my head rent free for some reason. I recommend everyone go check it out. It's mostly hangout stuff, but it also has a lot to do with sports, camaraderie, and just teammates, I think. And in this case, baseball. So shouts to everybody who wants them. It's great. Glenn Powell, I love you.
You know, it's so funny you're bringing up Glenn Powell right now. I was walking back from a softball game in New York City last night, and I
Mm,
saw a advertisement on a bus stop for Glenn Powell's new movie, Hitman,
right.
which I'd never heard of before. But I was like, has this guy slept in legitimately 3 years? Because he's in everything now. He was in Anyone But You. He's in Twisters. He's now
Uh-huh.
in Hitman. I'm like, his agent is absolutely cooking at the perfect time because my friend goes, "Yeah, I mean, it's true. As a guy where you're kind of like this sexy man, your
Mhm.
shelf life doesn't stay around forever. So you better strike while the iron is hot." But I have not seen that movie, Javi, so I don't have too much to comment on the movie. But I'm
It's
glad you
okay.
brought up Glenn Powell because I was like, where did Glenn Powell really come from?
Some of the greatest treasures in this world are not the most popular ones. You know what I mean? That's just how it is sometimes. I recommend it to everybody though. It's such a blast. It is R-rated, so just keep that in mind. It's not like a family movie. There's a lot of like drugs and sex and curse words and a couple scenes of violence, but I really think it encapsulates life. And it's a more mature version of Dazed and Confused because that's what happens in college, where it's half and half. You know what I mean? So it's still you being a degenerate and with the guys on the baseball team, them competing and all that. But then another half where it's like your brain is starting to form like the executive function that happens when you get older, where you can actually make smart decisions. So it's like half and half. So I really recommend everyone check it out. But Colby, enough about Everybody Wants Some and the legendary Glenn Powell. Tell us, what have you got at number 5?
Number 5 could I arguably be from the best baseball movie of all time. I don't know if it's mine, but I know
Okay.
that Rotten Tomatoes ranks it as theirs. It's
Okay.
from Bull Durham,
Mm. Mm.
starring the one and only Kevin Costner. He knows how to make a baseball movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim Robbins as Nuke LaLoosh. So it's like Crash Davis and Nuke LaLoosh have the best dynamic in this movie. It's incredible. But my favorite scene, and I come back to it all the time and I reference it all the time as a pitcher myself, is when Kevin Costner, Crash Davis, goes out to the mound, middle of the inning, to go out and talk with Nuke. And Crash Davis gets out there and Nuke's like, what the fuck are you doing out here? Because the thing in the movie is that Nuke can't throw strikes. He's nasty. He throws heat, but he can't throw strikes. And
Mm-hmm.
so in this particular game, it's the first inning of the game. Nuke has thrown 9 straight strikes. Like he's on.
Mm.
And so Kevin Costner goes out there and he goes, Nuke, hit the mascot. Throw it at the bull. Because the bull is like standing behind
Yeah.
literally the catcher on the field during play, which is ridiculous. Minor league baseball, welcome to it.
Yeah.
And he goes, throw it at the bull. And Nuke's like, what are you talking about? He goes, just do it. Next pitch, boom, hits the bull right in the head. And the bull, like, literally falls, faints, whatever. And the batter's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And Crash goes, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the ball is going. The next one could be at your head. And it's just such a perfect minor scene. It's literally 50
Yeah.
seconds of the movie, but it just
Mm.
encapsulates everything about Nuke and Crash Davis relationship throughout the movie and the way that Nuke doesn't really trust Crash, but he should. And it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's a really great movie, and it is. I think the way I'd say it is, if you describe the premise of that movie to someone who knows nothing about it, and you say, "Oh, by the way, this is also a movie from 1988." If you just describe the premise, you'd be like, "Ugh, I bet there's some stuff that doesn't age well in that movie." It is the complete opposite, and I'm not just talking about the baseball. I'm talking about the gender politics. Susan Sarandon's amazing in this movie. All the things that it has to say about life, and it may make an appearance later in this podcast for not baseball movie scenes though for me, not quite, but that is an excellent choice. Some other one, there's so many good lines in that movie too. It's a good line movie for sure. It's a good, like, it's just dumb, not dumb. It's the baseball scenes can be dumb, you know what I mean? Because it's like it kind of, because it's the minor leagues and it's like such a unique thing. Everyone wants to do the 61, right? Everyone wants to do the big leaguer and all that stuff, and for the love of the game. And instead, minor league baseball with the Durham Bulls. Excellent choice, Mr. Olson. But I got another one to one up you. It is the dark side of baseball. It is the bad side of baseball, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what I'm going to do. And no, I'm not getting myself canceled. But I have a lot of beef with this movie. I still ranked it in my top 10 for more of a presentational aspect. I have beef with this movie because I think that it could have been more, frankly. And I'll explain why in a minute. But for me, it is Ben Chapman's racial harassment in 42. I'm going to explain. I think that there's been reports that Spike Lee was originally going to do a Jackie Robinson movie. And I would wager that that movie would probably be a lot more visceral and less easy for the average audience member to go see. That's just my opinion. There are reports that he was thinking about doing that. And if you know anything about Spike Lee's movies, yeah, you have an idea where he might have gone with that. And I do have some issues, with the movie. I don't think it's quite Hidden Figures level. Actually, I don't have to think that. I know it's not Hidden Figures level. And what I mean by that is scenes that are kind of made that we don't know if they happened just to make people feel better about what happens. Hidden Figures, for example, being the Kevin Costner, who's Kevin Costner will always be part of this stuff, I guess, when it comes to old-fashioned things and doing the right thing and like Dances with Wolves. You know what I mean? Like all these movies, and Bull Durham is really great. There's a scene when Kevin Costner's character takes down the men and women sign so people can use the bathroom at the same time. That character was not real. And then at the end, when they invite her in to see the launch, that also did not happen. 42 doesn't have that, but it does have a little bit of a softball approach to things. But what redeems it for me is that it does not go softball here. I'm obviously not going to say the words that were said, but basically during one of Jackie Robinson's at bats, Ben Chapman, who would have been known for baseball only if the harassment didn't get uncovered, this didn't become as big of a deal, harasses Jackie Robinson the whole time, calls him the N-word. And at one point, Jackie's looking back. He goes into the, not the dugout, what's that called? The tunnel, and smashes his bat, has to collect himself. I just think it shows a lot of what he went through. And it's only one scene, but I think the scene is so memorable. I really do, that I think it covers up for some of my aforementioned issues. It's raw, it's uncut. Obviously, it's not something necessary to see with your kids, but it's real. And I think that's really important to acknowledge that side of baseball history.
No comment. You nailed it.
Thank you, man. I thought I did okay too.
I mean, I guess I should have expected. I wasn't expecting a woke moment on this podcast, but I should have been expecting a woke moment on this podcast from you. So here we are.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Tell me the definition, Colby. But no, I just think that scene is tremendous. There's a lot of other good ones in that movie. And some that might make the honorable mentions because I have a really funny anecdote about one of them that happened that will make everyone uncomfortable. And I can't wait to get to it. But Colby, what was that? That was my number 5. What is your number 4 moment on the top baseball movie scenes?
Oh, we're getting into some good stuff now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, now we've gotten to my favorite baseball movie, which is Moneyball.
Okay.
And coincidentally, it's the only movie on this list. Well, I guess Fever Pitch is made in 21st century, but all my other movies are from like the 80s and 90s. But yeah, Moneyball, a recent movie, incredible movie. But one of my favorite scenes from this movie is when the scouts from the Mets have sat Billy Beane down as he's in college, or no, he's in high school, and he's thinking about, going to Stanford or deciding to be taken in the first round and going to the New York Mets. And, they're sitting him down at the table and they're like, Billy, we're all going to be told that we can't play the children's game anymore. Some of us are told at 18, some of us are told at 40, but we're all told. And I love that line, but that isn't why I love this scene so much. So he decides that he wants to go to the big leagues. And then it cuts to current day Brad Pitt, who is Billy Beane, sitting in his apartment. And he calls up Pete and goes, so, Pete, when I left your office earlier today, you looked me up on your computer. Would you have taken me in the first round? And Pete goes, yeah, man, you were pretty good. Brad Pitt goes, cut the crap, man.
Yeah.
And he's like drinking and chewing sunflower seeds. And he goes, okay, I would have taken you in the 9th round. No signing bonus. And Brad Pitt goes, yeah. Pack your bags, Pete. I just purchased you from the Cleveland Indians. And I just love it. Like, it's so raw. And there's something about Ocean's 11 is one of my favorite movies of all time. And something that is a theme in Ocean's 11 is that Brad Pitt's character in that movie is eating in every scene. So if you watch that movie, if anyone listens and watches that movie again, you'll notice he's eating in every scene. Brad Pitt is excellent at eating and drinking in scenes and like playing that up. Nails it in this scene, just like chewing sunflower seeds. Because I just imagine like the perfect baseball GM, like sipping bourbon and chewing sunflower seeds and like making moves. Like it's just such a good scene, man. But he wants Pete to be honest. He wants somebody that he can trust, and obviously that's the case. And just a beautiful movie. But this scene really is probably my favorite of the movie.
It's excellent. That's just amazing writing, right? Like amazing writing, amazing acting, the timing of it all. Yeah, that was a good impression, by the way, of Brad Pitt as Billy Bean. Well done. Hey, yeah, Colby. There we go. That was really good. I think that for me, I have another scene that would have made the honorable mention that I think is even more raw than that, and we'll get into that later. But excellent scene, excellent movie, and my personal pick as well for the best baseball movie of all time. Because you know
Cringiest
why?
in that movie is the girl playing her guitar song and as Billy Bean drives away. I can't handle that one. I'm sorry, man. It hurt.
Are you insane?
Like, cringes me out.
What? This is a. This is what are you, Mad Dog Russo with this take? That's the heart of the movie. What are you talking about? It literally summarizes the movie.
I didn't say that the emotions felt were not real, but it cringes me out.
I
Maybe
think
emotions cringe me out, Javi. We're getting. Is this therapy?
Yes, this is unbelievable, man. All right. Well, we have our first atrocious take of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Next up for my number 4. I'm gonna keep it lighthearted now, since we've had two really more serious ones, especially on my part. My next one, number 4, is the classic. I don't really think I need to explain it much as I've explained at least my last 2 picks. League of Their Own, no crying in baseball. It's not my number 1. And the only reason is because I sometimes wonder if it's just that we really like the one quote. I don't think it is that. I wonder what you think, but who cares? Also, it is an amazing quote, great movie, and Hank sells it as he sells everything. That's a hard part, I think, actually low key to pull off and to be memorable, like some drunken manager for this women's baseball team during, was it World War II? I forgot when it was. World War II. Like just so many dynamics in this movie, and they balance it really well. And of course, that one scene is really easy to quote, and it's funny. And we need some humor every now and then. Am I right, Colb?
This movie is a masterpiece. It's hilarious. It's serious. It's probably one of the most underrated baseball movies. And if you haven't seen it, you definitely should go see it.
Is it underrated though? I don't know if it's underrated.
I don't know. I don't hear people talk about it that much.
In fairness, I don't know if anybody talks about baseball movies anymore. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's the case. That
might just be a cultural zeitgeist thing where baseball is just not as
nobody talks
powerful.
about it, and it's like, who's nobody? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But I do think that sometimes I will give you this. Maybe sometimes it isn't often regarded as one of the best. I think people bring up things like Bull Durham, Moneyball, Sandlot. I think they bring up Major League, when A League of Their Own is probably in the triple S tier, and it should be on the short list for the best. Really maybe in that regard. Yeah, it's excellent.
You didn't do an impersonation though. It's like, it's not
no
just
there's
no crying in baseball. There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Are those tears?
But the best part about it is he does this explanation and goes, he talks about how Rogers Hornsby chewed him out back when in 1922 because he didn't make a play. And he goes, "Did I cry?" And she goes, "No, you didn't cry." And he goes, "Do you know why I didn't cry?" And she goes, "I don't know." And he goes, "Because there's no crying in baseball." And it's just beautiful because there's no reason not to cry, but it's like, just don't cry. Don't take things personally. Just because I told you you fucked up and to make the play doesn't mean you need to cry. It's not that serious. Don't take it personally. And I think that's a great lesson that everybody should take in life, is don't take things so personally. There's no crying over spilt milk. There's no crying over stupid stuff. And in this case, baseball can be really stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the lesson of the movie, is that once you realize and embrace that nothing matters, then you won't cry. No, I'm kidding. That's something else in the movie.
Also,
But
I mean, the full clip is incredible because just after
I
he
know.
says that, he gets thrown out of the game
Yeah.
for saying that the
Yeah.
umpire looks like he has he looks like a penis with a hat on. It's incredible.
So, hey, look, I'm just trying to create conflict. That's why I brought up are we sure it's a scene instead of just one quote?
Yeah.
But I am not one of those people, but I'm going to play a character every now and then. But yeah, this is my number 4. And I imagine that for many people, it might be their number 1.
This is my number
Frankly,
3. So
this is
yeah.
number 3. Well, then let's
An
go.
honorable mention from this movie that was close to making it is the pee
Hmm.
scene in this movie where, you know, it's their first game and Tom Hanks comes in the locker room after the game and pees for a full 2 minutes, and all the girls, like Madonna pulls out her watch and she's timing, and all the girls are like,
That was funny.
"What's
Yeah.
the time? It's gonna be a record," and it's so good.
That was funny. There's so much, like, for obviously it's got many serious parts in this movie, don't get me wrong, and obvious politics with it too, but there's so much camaraderie and like dumb nonsense that they do. Dare I say the most dumb nonsense in a baseball movie outside Sandlot that I can think of, really.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of dumb like teammate camaraderie and
Well,
baseball.
Major League is probably the most
Yeah.
dumb nonsense.
Yeah,
movie
that's
ever.
true.
Yeah.
I feel like yeah, no, you're right though. Because that's like the central focus of that movie too. And I
Yeah.
always, dude, if you just show me a picture of Charlie Sheen in that movie, I laugh.
It's
Like
like, what
there's
if we
something
made
about him.
Caddyshack in baseball form? That's what
Yeah.
Major League is. It's great.
Basically. But Colb, you just this was your number 3. But
Yeah, so if you wanna move on to your number 3, we're rolling.
exactly. Let's just go on to number 3 for me. Again, I was texting Colby before we recorded this podcast. I was like, man, I'm coming up with my top 6 and I'm struggling because I'm struggling with which is my scene from Moneyball that I want to put on the list. I knew my top 2. I knew those. I was like, I know what they're going to be, but I didn't know which dang scene do I do for Moneyball. You know, there's so many quotes. Colby already picked his. For me, I'm going with it. It hurts that I can only choose one. I'm going with the trade deadline. Peter Brand, at least that character, and Billy Bean. It says trade deadline, and they're on the phone, going back and forth quickly, and just citing things. You get the famous, like, there's a lot of quotable lines in this. You get the famous Jonah Hill, like the slow, fist, like we did it, we got it done, and it's 1,000,000 times funnier when you're like a baseball fan, like you and me are degenerates in that regard, where it's like all of this for Ricardo Rincon. You know what I mean? Like in the context of grand Major League Baseball, it's not like this is a scene detailing the trade of Miguel Cabrera from the Marlins. No, but that's what makes it brilliant is that is a trade for just a helpful piece that will make your team better, and the stress and anxiety that you're getting regular. Colby, I don't know about you. I know way too many people that don't know anything about baseball and love this movie, and that speaks to it. And for me, that's what makes this scene the best for me is that it's unique. They got us to care about Ricardo Rincon. There's no other scene that gives you anxiety over transactions, right? And then also, equally as important, the follow-up is there's a humanizing element. And I think that is really important. And the pacing of it to be like, here's this thrilling moment. This is amazing. And then the come down, which is them, Peter Brand just going like, but that means, and then Brad Pitt's like, well, we got to send someone down. And while this movie has a lot of criticisms of it and how it treats people like numbers, and it's a bureaucratic look at things, and it's but
I don't think that's even the criticism of this movie. I think the criticism of this movie is how they ignored that the A's were a
and then that too,
juggernaut that year.
Ignoring Miguel Tejada, ignoring all their other pitchers. That's it. And then the other criticism, which I was getting into, but I also think this movie humanizes a lot of things. And we're going to talk about some of those scenes later in my honorable mentions, so I don't want to step on that. But I think that this movie, just as much as there are people who take the wrong lessons from Moneyball, where they're like, yeah, why should my team sign a star? Just sign 3 guys for $300K. That'll take us to the World Series, when it really doesn't usually do that. But I also think this movie is about innovation. I think it's about, not shirking when people bark down at you, trying to find new ways, looking past physical flaws and arbitrary kind of biases. That's why I think makes Moneyball great. But in this case, I just love the trade deadline scene. It's so funny. And I'm pretty sure he's eating during that scene too. To go to your earlier point.
He is. I have 2 comments on this scene because it's an incredible scene. First of all, is when during the negotiations, he's looking at Pete and he's like, he says to the Indians GM, what do you think of Hernandez? We'll give you
Yeah.
Hernandez. And he's like, we won't do Hernandez. It's like, you don't
Yeah.
even know who Hernandez
Yeah,
is.
you don't even know who that is.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's brilliant
Great writing.
writing like, once again.
He's just like, he sits there, he's like, oh, I like Garcia. You don't even know who he is. Like all that stuff. Like, it's just, he sells it so well.
Well, it
And
might
then the
be a
whole,
different
like,
scene. You're right.
put him on hold, put him on hold, right back. Who should I do? Nah, 26 years old and single A. Nah, never gonna make it. Okay. And they go through everything about it. You're like, why do I care about this? It's like a reliever, but that's what they do. So shouts to Moneyball.
Well, my second comment is the real life video to go watch if you're looking for more of this type of thing is the NFL put out a video of the Arizona Cardinals GM from the 2023 NFL draft making 2 trades within 5-minute span.
Yeah.
And it's like this in real life. He's like, okay, get the Texans on the phone. Okay, get the Colts on the phone. And it's just like, all right, what's your biggest price? Like, it's so cool.
That's amazing. I'm gonna look that up.
You gotta look that up. It's a really, really good video.
I will absolutely look that up.
It's like the type of content that needs to be out there. Like, I need to be just like in these war rooms. And
because it's such a thing we don't understand. We understand the moves you have to make, but we don't understand the length of time. And when it gets stressful, what does that look like? And again, I think Moneyball is what started to make people more curious too about all of these questions, where it was like, yeah, wait, we never talk about GMs. It's always about the star player and, the Benny Rodriguez's and the Pablo Sanchez's and all that stuff. But instead, that's what we get here.
If you like Moneyball, go watch Margin Call. That's my recommendation.
Ooh, Margin Call. Oh, nice spicy recommendation from Colby Olson. I love it, man. Now, I want to hear what your number 2 is, though.
Oh, yeah. Number 2 is, now we're getting to the good stuff, Javi. We're finally going to Major League. And what a scene. What a freaking scene. In this movie, the Indians suck. They are god-awful. Just terrible baseball team. Nothing they do right. Like, everybody has some weird quirk, and they don't gel. And then the manager comes into play, and as all good managers do, they have to rally the troops. They have to get everybody to connect and rally around one common thing. And that common thing in Major League, well, it's naked women. Because what else would it be, Javi? What else would it be? Everybody's horny, and Major League is horny, and baseball players are horny too. And so the manager goes, he puts a life-size cutout of the owner. I believe it's the owner in the movie, right?
It should be, yeah. Yeah, it should be. She's trying to sell them off for spare parts, basically.
Yeah, she's trying to sell them off. And he puts a life-size cutout of the owner in the locker room and goes, every game that we win, I will take a piece of the owner's dress off. And all of a sudden, everybody is clicking. They're working out. They're taking extra batting practice, extra ground balls. Everybody's working hard. Before you know it, they go on like a 10-game winning streak. And the pieces of clothing are falling off. And it's just so perfect because, yeah, it's just like it encapsulates everything about a team and just rallying around one common goal. And in this case, that common goal being just we want to see this owner naked is like so funny and ridiculous. This movie is just incredible.
This movie has a lot of scenes that I'll say probably don't happen today. To put it lightly, we literally just from the get-go, it's the Cleveland Indians back then. That's immediately like, you're like, wow, like that, and the She-Hef Wahoo and all that stuff. But for me, this movie is insane. Me personally, I don't have a rewatchable see this movie, but I think it's just looking at Charlie Sheen's intense face makes me laugh every single time I see it. Just him like that. It just kills me, dude. It kills me every time. But you're right. This movie has a lot of that. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot that doesn't age well, obviously. But when did this come out, by the way? That's a good question. I always forget when this came out.
80s.
It's got to be the 80s, right? It wears the 80s on its sleeve. I will say that. One of the best movie posters. I will say that. I'll give that much. Yeah, 89.
I don't, Javi, I disagree though. I don't know if there's much in this movie that doesn't age.
I think the voodoo thing isn't great.
Really? Because I think the
voodoo thing doesn't age well for people. It's like you have one, not one, but it's just you have this guy, and it's like, of course, he's in the African voodoo or whatever. Might be a little bit of a stereotype, so that's not great. I think it's funny,
What's
but
wrong,
there's a lot of
what's
people.
wrong with stereotypes though? They're good.
What's wrong with
It's a
There's the other.
comedy movie.
There's
You're
the
saying
next Mad Dog
stereotypes are
Russo.
bad? Have you ever
Well, it's
watched
not.
a comedy movie before?
All right, first of all, it's not a childhood movie. I wouldn't describe Major League as a childhood movie. And you're talking to someone who loves
No, I
Rush
said a
Hour.
comedy movie.
Believe me. Oh, comedy movie. Oh,
Yeah,
comedy
it's a
movie.
comedy movie. Of course they're gonna
No, I
use
know.
stereotypes.
I'm not saying that I think the movie should be banished. I'm just saying there are some things in it where you look at it today and you're like, wow, y'all were wilding out back then. And playing into stereotypes, I disagree. I do not what's the word? I do not endorse Colby saying stereotypes are good, which is the craziest take anyone's had
In
on this
the
podcast.
context of comedy, let it rip.
I think so, but I disagree when it's on these certain things. I think racial politics are important for these type of scenes, but I still think the movie's good, and I do like that scene. I think it's very funny. I think it's funny that that's what makes them go on the winning streak. It's like we don't know what the hell to do, so let's just go back to primal instinct, I guess. And it works. It works. And there's another thing with one of the relationships with one of the players that's a little bit weird. That again, I haven't seen the movie in a little bit, but I don't remember the relationship with someone that I remember being weird and a little cringy. But I can't remember if it was cringy or like ages poorly. I don't remember fully.
Yeah,
But
it's like, well, it's just like the third
uh-oh.
baseman's wife. There's an affair going on. I don't think it's anything like crazy. I think it's just an
Okay.
affair.
It's just an affair. Okay. I got to watch that scene again. But again, I have been attacked by Colby for the woke allegations that I refuse to accept. As someone who one of his favorite movies is Rush Hour, which is about 487 million times worse than Major League. That movie is off the hook. Again, I'm just pointing it out to people that, hey, there are some things probably don't happen today. But guess what? It's 89 and people were letting it rip. And especially so in this movie. Major League is wild. Wild movie. And also, I think doesn't get a lot of credit for having a lot of heart towards the end. It really does flip in a way. Like the first like bunch of it is like Bad News Bears, and then it becomes like Moneyball at the end. You know what I mean? Like it just becomes really heartfelt. But
well, it's just, you know what's the funniest comparison of like I made the Major League to Caddyshack comparison, which I think does hold up. The funniest part about that though is they both have probably the biggest sequel flops ever.
Yeah.
Like Major League 2 is one of the worst movies ever. Caddyshack 2 is also one of the worst movies ever.
Yeah. And Caddyshack is hilarious. That movie is just like, don't get me started, Rodney Dangerfield. Me and former guests on this show, Clay Snowden, we've watched that movie together. It is amazing that it exists. Obviously, so much weird stuff, but like wild movie, and it's stupid, and I like it. My number 2, Colby. Completely different end of the spectrum. It is not something with weird stuff that I don't know if we can talk about. Don't worry. Instead, it is something that everyone relates to. At least I usually think everyone relates to. Field of Dreams. Look, CC Sabathia had a very funny interview with Ryan Rucco talking about how he said, oh, we don't care about no corn and all that stuff. Like, I get it. It's a very, very old-fashioned, very heart on its sleeve, very of its time. Not in the sense that it doesn't age well, but very of its time and very, like, trite in a lot of ways. But it works, and the reason it works is because of the ending. Kevin Costner asking his dad if he wants to play catch. Just as simple as that. I didn't particularly love this movie. I'd give it like a 3.5. I liked it. I didn't love it. What are you doing? Why are you leaning into the camera?
You gave this movie a 3.5?
Yeah. Well, that's not bad. That's good. That's not bad at all. That's good. Why are you looking at me like that? I like the movie.
A 7 out of 10. That feels like you were like, yeah, it was okay.
No, like I thought it was good, but I think that
tugs at my heartstrings. I want to almost like tear up on this podcast when you're talking about him having a catch with his dad, Javi.
Hey, before you attacked me, I was starting to get there, I think. And former guest of the show, Clay Snowden, gave it a 3 out of 5 what I'm looking at right now. So take it up with him, Colb. Anyway, please go ahead. Text him right after we're done with this. For me, this is a movie that you need to get to the end. You cannot just watch segments. I mean, you can, I guess, but it just doesn't. This is the bow on the movie. It is not a punchline, but it's like you work up this way to get to this moment between him and his father. And it's something that relates, right? I've had not a bad relationship with my father, but my parents are divorced, so I didn't always see him. And it was always fun playing catch for some reason. And we would never be talking about baseball either. That's what I think was so interesting. Was when we played catch, we weren't talking about baseball. I was just talking. He's like, "Hey, what'd you do in school this week?" We're just throwing the ball back and forth, and that's all I did. It probably explains why I couldn't hit to save my life because growing up, I literally only played catch, so I was only good defensively, which might shock you out there, but that's the only thing I could do. I was like Andrew Velasquez or whatever, someone like that. But yeah, just a it really hits you. And when I first watched this movie, I didn't expect it. I had just been like, wow, this is really heartfelt. I like this movie. I love James Earl Jones' appearance in it. I love my guy Danny Buchanan from The West Wing making a cameo in this, being a jerk lawyer or whatever. I don't know if he's a lawyer. I forgot what he is. And then when he hits the daughter and all that stuff, she falls off. And then all of a sudden, this absolute wrecking ball of a line comes in. It just completely took me off guard, and it makes the entire movie experience worth it. And it's fantastic. Costner sells it super well, and it's great. And I like it very much. It is my number 2 scene of all time.
What a movie. What a
What a
movie.
picture. What a picture.
I have before I go to my number 1, I almost wanna go to my favorite baseball movie scene that's not a baseball favorite non-baseball scene that's in a baseball movie is from this movie,
Okay.
where
Go
this
ahead.
movie goes Christopher Nolan, Inception, Interstellar
Yo!
mode for, like, 25 minutes, and you're just very confused, but also you're loving it all at the same time, where you go into the
It's like,
time change and you meet Moonlight Graham and you're
yeah,
like,
it's like
"Is
a
it
foggy, like
1986 or is it
outside. Yeah.
where are we?" For a second. A and it feels like an Interstellar when he's in the black hole and he's communicating with Murph, and you're like, "How is this really possible?" That's what this movie goes to for, like, 20 minutes, and you're
Mhm.
kinda confused, and I still don't have all the answers to that, and I don't think you're supposed to. I think that's part of the mystique of
Yeah.
this movie
Mhm.
is that it's not all supposed to make sense, it's just supposed to be illuminate the America's pastime, which is
Mhm.
baseball.
Mhm.
James Earl
Absolutely.
Jones.
Absolutely. I mean, what better person to have in this movie, and especially with Sandlot? And speaking of which, oh wait, no, I just went, so it's your turn. Never mind. So I might have spoiled. Well, you all know what my number 1 movie scene will be. You don't know what the scene is, but Colby, is this
This is my number 1.
okay?
It's
This is your
right
number 1.
it's right before The Catch with His Dad,
Okay.
where James Earl Jones as Terrence
Mhm.
Mann,
Mhm.
who James Earl Jones, everybody talks about Morgan Freeman's voice being so elegant and, like,
Mhm.
the best voice.
Mm.
James Earl Jones might trump Morgan Freeman in my book,
Mm.
and this
Mm.
scene gives me chills whether he's saying it or not. I mean, it's at the point in the movie where, like you were saying, the lawyer is like, "Ray, you gotta sell the house, Ray. The people are gonna come to foreclose the house, Ray." And Terrence Mann is there, James Earl Jones. "Ray, people will come, Ray. They'll come to Iowa for reasons they can't even fathom. They'll turn up at your driveway not knowing for sure why they're doing it. They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the pass. Of course, we won't mind if you look around, you'll say. It's only $20 per person. And they'll pass over the money without even thinking about it, for it is money they have and peace they'll lack. And they'll walk out to the bleachers and sit in short sleeves on a perfect afternoon. They'll find they have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines where they sat when they were children and cheered their heroes. And they'll watch the game, and it'll be as if they dipped themselves in magic waters. The memories will be so thick, they'll have to brush them away from their faces. People will come, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the test of time. This field, this game, it's a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good and could be again. I have chills right now. Like that whole monologue is incredible.
You killed that, by the way. Well done. Well done.
Once
Absolutely
it
well
gets
done.
to reminds us of all that once was good and could be again, I break. It's so good.
Just a good movie, really. And I know that you just slandered me for some reason because 3.5 is a bad score. To all you snowflakes out there, apparently that's a bad score these
I
days.
think I'm just
But
biased for this movie, Javi.
oh yeah,
I
clearly you're in your bag.
I really
You're
have a soft spot for this movie.
yeah, you're in your bag on this one. Hey, I've got some movie soft spots, I think. I
But
don't
I
know which
will say
ones,
this
but
movie's divisive, man. I know some people that
yes,
really do not like this movie, and
yes,
I
yes.
can't seem to understand it.
Yeah, actually, Arm Layton just texted saying that movie is horrible, and that's coming from a dude. Never mind, I'm not going to say the rest. But I just think that he's just like he just simplified it. I think, and there are some people who think about it that way, where they're just like, yeah, cool. Guy who has his dad passed away. Oh, we're pretending that these are criticisms I've heard. By the way, these aren't mine. Oh well, okay, we're going to pretend Shoeless Joe Jackson was the greatest thing ever. We're going to lionize this guy. Oh, well, he cheated. Oh, well, it does this. Oh, well, it's
Oh, like
boring. Oh, well,
he
it's that.
didn't cheat though.
Yeah, probably not. But, you get my
Shoeless
point.
Joe didn't cheat. I'll defend that.
Okay. I personally, I don't know and I have no opinion. I don't really care about it. You know what I mean? But what I do care about is in the context of the movie, I just think it's relatable. You know what I mean? So I disagree with those takes. I don't think that these are necessarily unrelatable things, but it does take some time to get to it. I think that if you start off this movie, you're like, we got these two white people that are arguing over making a field of corn. You know what I mean? It's not like immediately like, yeah, everyone gets this. Once it gets going, though, our parents, legacy, what we leave behind, wanting to spend more time with the people we love, past mistakes, a genuinely hilarious out of nowhere scene about communism taking over the country or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like that scene is actually hilarious. And like Kevin Costner as his wife is just about to like drop kick the other parents. His wife goes like Kendrick Lamar on the entire
I
in
think
the
there's
entire
a
thing.
movie going to
And
this
then Kevin
movie.
Costner's just like, yeah. Like he's just like looking at a book, like genuinely hilarious scene in a very like irreverent, like sideways, like funny scene, I think in a lot of ways. But that would be my thing. I think that it is a little bit of a slow build up for people who don't necessarily love baseball and don't really know the Shoeless Joe Jackson story. Once you get into it, I think that's what makes it worth it is the dad play a catch thing. And especially that beautiful quote that you just read. Writers are amazing, aren't they? They're just great.
Just imagine that it's Christopher Nolan made a baseball movie.
Yeah, honestly, it's like Christopher Nolan or like M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Like, just because of that one scene. But folks, it's time for my number one. Also a heartfelt one. It's from Sandlot, which I spoiled earlier. And I really struggled. I mean, this was the one I was talking to Colby before this. Like, how do I do my list? My first honorable mention will be the scene that I didn't choose from this movie because I think it is so funny and perfect. And echoes back to what we were talking about a little bit with Major League, and I'll explain that in a second. But for me, my number one baseball movie scene of all time is the 4th of July game in Sandlot. I'll do what Colby just did and reread the quote. There's only one night game a year. On the 4th of July, the whole sky would brighten up with fireworks, giving us just enough light for a game. We played our best then because I guess we all felt like the big leaguers under the lights of some great stadium. Benny felt like that all the time. We all knew he was going to go on to bigger and better games because every time we stopped to watch the sky on those nights, like regular kids, he was there to call us back. You see, for us, baseball was a game, but for Benjamin Franklin Rodriguez, baseball was life. Very succinct, but it's not just about the quote. The entire scene, Benny running to Scotty's house, opening the door, saying, "Come on, let's go." The neighborhood festival, the cookouts, dare I say, even though it's on the street, but you get my point. Porter grabbing the food. That was me, for the record, as a kid. That might surprise some people. I just grabbed some food and then kept running. And everything about that scene, the childlike wonder that everyone looks at, the genuine visual in a movie that doesn't necessarily have, Tarantino-esque shots or anything like that, that it does have a beautiful visual of the fireworks and just seeing that. And it really captures that moment when you're a kid, the amazement, they're all staring and, the whole pretending you're under the bright lights. That's what you do when you're a kid. You're like, oh, I'm the this and that. And by the way, it could go for any profession. It doesn't have to be baseball. Maybe you pretend you're a stand-up comic. You know what I mean? But everyone has that pretend of being a star, pretend at being the peak, the moment, the spotlight. And I think that it really captures that with the Ray Charles singing in the background, absolute killer voice. And also another thing that I just find so great, and it's a smart decision that they make in the movie, that everyone's looking except for Benny, who just keeps rounding the bases, which says a lot about his character and the rest of them. And it's not a negative. It's not a negative that the other kids want to enjoy a simple thing in life. It's just showing you that Benny wasn't about simple stuff. He had it. You know what I mean? And that's why he's been my favorite baseball movie character, no doubt, of all time. He's great. A leader, a friend, stands up for everybody. But for me, it is that scene. I will tell you what the honorable mention is. You're definitely going to make fun of me for making it my honorable mention, but it didn't feel quite like a number one. This is my number one. Colby, what do you think?
This scene encapsulates what it was like to be a baby boomer in the United States of America in 1962, and fireworks going off, a love for America, cookouts, running around with your friends, no phones. Incredible movie. There's so many scenes from this movie that were very close for me as well. Wendy Pepper. What is it?
Peppercorn, I think.
Peppercorn.
I think it's peppercorn.
It's not peppercorn.
I think it's pepper.
Peppercorn.
Let me look it up, though.
I had to make sure that wasn't. It sounded weird coming out of my mouth. That's an amazing scene. But this scene, I agree, Javi, is very
disagreed,
special.
But go ahead.
Yeah, Wokey Air Reyes isn't gonna like the Wendy Peppercorn scene. That's a line crossed on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It just says Wendy on here. That's weird. It just says Wendy. Dang you, Letterbox. Show the full names. You know what I mean? All right, I guess I got to Google it. No, but just a quick aside, I just think that scene doesn't age well because it's just straight up like an assault, and it just doesn't go well. And the older Scotty approving it. And there's another scene in this that I'm going to get into right in a second. But first, let's repeat our top 6 one more time before I cook Colby like a steak. You know what I mean, folks? Like a marshmallow, am I right? My top 6, just quickly run through. The first team practice, and everybody wants some. Ben Chapman's tirade in 42 against Jackie Robinson. No crying in baseball from a league of their own. The trade deadline scene in Moneyball. Dad, do you want to play catch and field of dreams? And then number 1, the 4th of July game in Sandlot.
You would like me to go through my list?
Yes.
Okay.
Just one more time.
Number 1 is Field of Dreams, James Earl Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the best. One of the maybe the best movie quotes, period, for me. Number 2, Major League. The naked girl gets the win streak going. Number 3, there's no crying in baseball. There's no crying. Number 4 is Moneyball, when Brad Pitt is just doing his classic thing, eating, drinking some bourbon. And then number 5, Throw It at the Bull from Bull Durham. And then the pitch, when the Red Sox come back and Jimmy Fallon is beside himself.
It is Wendy Peffer. Peffer corn, peppercorn. So there you go. Weird name for a character, I will say, but very of the time, dare I say. Colby, you ready to get into some honorable mentions, and then because we got to go through these. We've been talking for a while, man. My gosh, you ready? Let's do some honorable mentions. We'll quickly run through these before we get into the other 2 categories. I'll go on my Sandlot thing. I don't think the lifeguard scene ages well. It makes me a little bit. It just feels weird. And I think the key is that him narrating over and being like, it was cool. It's like, I don't think that's actually cool. But here's a scene that I will defend. And it was what I was arguably going to put number 1. I just didn't want to have repeats. You play ball like a girl in Sandlot. The reason why is similar to what you were saying about Major League, but this isn't adults. This is kids, and there's a huge difference for me. And they basically use, everyone's heard this, oh, you eat your farts or whatever, and they're all just throwing stupid insults that you're like, why was this a thing as a kid? But it was real. You wanted to win the insult battle. And the reactions when Porter says, you play ball like a girl, and then they all go, and then it's like, it not only is funny, but it captures how stupid you are as a kid, that was the worst thing that someone could say. It was the most emasculating, like, death blow that you could receive. Like, that's absolutely what did you just say? You know, like that whole, like, that whole thing. It was close to my number 1, and of course they kicked their butts afterwards. And to side with Colby and his weird agenda, I will say that I don't like it when people get mad at this one, because my thing is, they're kids. And they're showing you it's actually hilarious that was an insult that was like ends your career as a kid. And then they followed up with them being stupid by chewing tobacco on a Ferris wheel. You know what I mean? Like, they're not smart. They are dumb kids. Obviously, Betty's great too, but they're stupid. And I think it's really funny, and it captures how you talk smack, at least from our generation. And I think that it really works. The fart smeller, toe jam, whatever the heck they say, just coming up with stuff you've never heard of before. And then the reaction. So that was my immediate honorable mention. I'm going to go through a couple more really quickly. The Natural, 2, striking out who is supposed to be Babe Ruth. It's supposed to be Babe Ruth very clearly early on in the movie, The Carnival. The walk-off scene, I really love that movie is just total mythical and fantasy in like every way. And it ends with him destroying the light. There's electricity everywhere. Like, it's got so many fantastical elements. The lightning hit the tree, all that stuff. Love that. Crash Davis's I Believe speech. I'm just going to read part of it. Well, I believe in the soul, the cock, the pussy, the small of a woman's back, the hanging curveball, high fiber, good scotch, that the novels of Susan Sontag are self-indulgent, overrated crap. I believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I believe there ought to be a constitutional amendment outlawing AstroTurf and the designated hitter. I believe in the sweet spot, softcore pornography, opening your presents Christmas Christmas morning rather than Christmas Eve, and I believe in long, slow, deep, soft, wet kisses that last 3 days. Good night. Just one of the wildest, like, summations of a character that I've ever seen in my life. Like, that's all you need to know who Crash Davis is. So that's on there for an honorable mention for me. All sorts of stuff. This anime Samurai Champloo has an episode where Americans travel to Japan back in like olden times, and they play them in baseball, and they don't know what baseball is, so they're swinging the bat like a samurai sword, and it's just really funny. And it ends with, after they beat the Americans, like, they left with a profound fear of Japanese people, which I think is a dark but hilarious quote. Literally everything Robert De Niro does in The Fan, if anyone's seen The Fan, it is a wild movie in which Wesley Snipes is a big baseball player, and Robert De Niro goes insane wanting him to be good, including murder, and also kidnapping his kid and forcing him to hit a home run, or else he's going to kill his head. So, wild movie. So that it's TV, so it doesn't qualify, but George Costanza in Seinfeld, the cameo with Derek Jeter, that whole thing, I think that's hilarious. It's really just perfect. I still use that picture of him with the bat to this day. 42, Jackie Robinson hits a home run, and right before he does that, one of the commentators saying something about, oh, well, of course they're going to be better. They have higher heel bones, so they'll be faster. And then he hits a home run, and then they do that thing. I bring that scene up because, not close to my favorite scene, Colby, I've literally heard someone say that in a class before. And it was the most uncomfortable I have ever been in my life. He said, yeah, they have a higher. So, and I was like, dude, that was a movie. But anyway, that one, Bull Durham, just the quote, man, that one got out of here in a hurry. That one's good. Again, more on their relationship and stuff. Moneyball. The walk-off, the opening scene on the radio, him listening, the dichotomy between the A's and Yankees payroll, just setting up the movie really well. That's really good stuff. The whole because he gets on base thing, which I think everyone still quotes to this day. The home run that you didn't even know it at the end of the movie, that was close for me instead of the trade deadline. That's a great scene, and a good life lesson. And then alluding to what you mentioned about we all, quit the game at some point. It all comes for all of us. The scene when they show you him in the Major League Baseball, that's brutal. One of the darker scenes I think we've talked about. It is really sad and tough to watch, to see that this guy, we don't think about that a lot. You know what I mean? We talk about players a lot that fail, but it has an impact. So that's one. And then lastly, because I didn't know if it would count, Secret Bases, History of the Seattle Mariners by John Boyes. Edgar Martinez is game winner. Shout out Puerto Rico. Those are my nominees for honorable mentions.
The scene he gets on base is so perfect.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
Well, one, because the writing is done well.
Yeah.
But it's the way that Brad Pitt points to Peter Brand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It nails it for me. A movie we didn't talk about at all, which I know that I said The Rookie is such a good movie, Javi. We haven't talked about it at all. It's the true story of Jim Morris, who debuted.
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid plays Jim Morris, who debuted as a 35-year-old. He was a school teacher. And one scene that is really good from that movie is Dennis Quaid goes out at like midnight with his son and goes out to the highway. They're in like, I don't know where they're from. They're in like Iowa or
Yeah, right. Where the heck are
Nebraska.
they?
They're in like corn, like middle America. Who knows? And he goes out to the highway where there is a speedometer, a big one, and he throws baseballs into a net into the speedometer on the highway, and it's like 89, 90, 92, and he's like, whoa, maybe I do have something here. And it kind of clicks in his head that he might really be good enough to make a comeback and try to play in the big leagues. And it's a really good movie. So I would recommend a revisit of that one, Javi.
It's like 3 movies in one, by the way. It's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a better example, but it's like it's got some Sandlot stuff in it. Because remember the Little League stuff? Like that's a whole first half of the movie.
He's like
a little bit
he's
of the
a high school
natural.
coach.
And it's funny, like you have the whole tournament though. Like you go through that, and it's like really cool. And you're rooting for those kids, and it's great. And then they all get him to try out. But anyway, solid movie. Solid movie. Shout out Dennis Quaid.
Definitely a solid movie. That's probably another one that I was watching on my little DVD player, man. I was just watching baseball movies, back of the car, whatever. An honorable mention for just a movie overall, a baseball movie that's not a baseball movie is, we were talking about this last night, Javi. I was a Disney movie kid. So like every night at 8:00 during like a school night, 8:00, they would show a movie and I would always just turn that on. I don't know if you remember like Smart House or any of those like just deep cut Disney movies that were only on for a few years, but Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off is one that always resonated with me growing up playing baseball. And basically, this movie is about this kid, Eddie, who is the star of the baseball team. His dad's the coach, but he also has this love for cooking. And so he's taking cooking classes kind of behind his dad's back because his dad doesn't want him to be distracted with anything else but baseball. And so there's this $1 Million Cook-Off challenge that's on the same day as his like big championship game. And Eddie decides to go to the cook-off, and it's a Disney movie. So eventually his dad has his back and it's like a happy ending or whatever. But like that movie just still lives rent free in my head for like no reason whatsoever. So I just had to bring that up as just kind of a random baseball movie. That's not a baseball movie.
Yeah.
One award that I wanted to bring to your attention, Javi.
Oh boy, here we go.
Is the award as the head of partnerships here at Just Baseball. I wanted to bring the award for best brand placement in a baseball movie.
Oh man, that's a good one.
So I have two that came to mind immediately, and the first one is the red man chewing tobacco from the Sandlot, where they're having it on the Ferris wheel or whatever that spinning thing was, and they all
chewing tobacco nonsense.
And I have whatever the the phobia of puke is. I had that as a kid, so like I honestly could not watch this scene. Like even just seeing it on TV would make me sick. Like I wouldn't puke myself, but I would just like get really nauseous. I kind of outgrew that in college, luckily, but I just really hate people puking, so that always kind of triggered me. But if they they did a pretty good job making people want to try Red Man. I feel like except the puking part, but yeah,
I always remember the way he said the best because he holds it up to he's like cha, and it's like you guys are so stupid. Like but that's why I like it. It's just a bunch of idiots the whole movie.
Good.
It's like if you took the Guardians of the Galaxy and gave them baseball.
I'm not a nicotine person, but I've done a few zins in my life, and like I'll do a few a year kind of thing. Like someone offered me one, I'm like, yep, you know what? Today's the day. I'm gonna have a zin. Those things knock you on your ass, Javi. Holy moly. No wonder those kids were puking on the freaking spinny thing. Man, those things make you spin like crazy. The second one, the second best brand placement is Henry Rowengartner from Rookie of the Year when he does the Pepsi commercial and he's like doing the he like sings in the Pepsi commercial. He's like, Pepsi. He's like doing a little dance and it's like so ridiculous. So that was my other one that I thought of immediately. I don't know if you had any others.
Can we say the Cleveland Indians for Major League? I mean, it's just incredible. I'm trying to think. That's really tough because there's a lot. I like that. I think Brad Pitt's wearing like a Nike shirt at one point. So that was pretty good for them. Shouts to Nike getting in on the game, but it's not like aggressive enough. I probably have to get back to you on this. This is
Yeah.
not an easy one to be
No,
to
I know.
answer on the
It is
fly.
it is a little bit of a deep cut, but those are the two that I like thought of off the top of my head.
There's gotta be like some food that Brad Pitt ate that showed the label or something like that. It has to be. Has to be. I can't think of anything though. But maybe the
Yeah.
more we talk, maybe I'll think of something as we go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, think about it, but yeah, I just thought it was really good.
Colby just gave us his award. It's now time for this week's weekly awards. First up, it's basically a continuation of what we already been talking about, baseball related movie scenes. But specifically now we are talking best non-baseball scene from a baseball movie, and we'll be doing the reverse after this. Colby, give us some of your nominees and we'll help you choose a winner.
You go first,
Oh, you
Javier. I
want me to
don't have
go?
much in this category, so
So,
yeah.
my nominees. The Natural, Roy Hobbs getting shot. And here's why. This is a personal anecdote. I like watching old movies and not knowing anything about them. I did not know that that's what happened in this movie. So I am watching this completely blind and I jumped out of my bed. I was like, what? Is he dead? Like, I was like, wait, hold on. Like, I thought this movie was just going to be, a guy who's a natural baseball player and watch his journey to the majors and become a star and all. I had no idea that it was about, no, he gets shot and vanishes like Captain America after friggin' Civil War and just is on somewhere else forever. So that one is, but that one's specific to me. This is another dark one, the second darkest one we've talked about today. G Baby, hardball, getting killed, stray bullet. You remember it. You remember it. So this isn't best scene. It's more about most memorable scene. It's tough.
I've never seen this movie.
Dude, hardball's nuts. It's like gambling degeneracy and then like inner city Sandlot with like
I
poor
know
kids and
this.
all that.
Like I know
It's
this
good.
movie,
It's
but
pretty
I've
good.
never seen it.
Moneyball, I put down every time Brad Pitt eats food. That's one of my nominees. Sandlot, the s'mores. And then what else we got here? The how do I put this? When Susan Sarandon and Kevin Costner finish up the post-sex breakfast, kind of a point in the movie when he starts to realize there are other things that matter and it's okay that you can just leave this part of your life behind and get on to something more important, which is romance and love, which I think is very nice, even if it's done in a humorous way with her being fed cereal by him and him eating Wheaties or whatever. It just makes me laugh. And then Stoner Session and Everybody Wants Some. Wyatt Russell goes for Clay Thompson in Game 6 in this scene. The most stoner lines you've ever heard in your life. It's pretty amazing. And he kills it. He sells it. Talking about Twilight Zone, Van Halen, and then all the other kids are just watching as he spouts absolute nonsense. Similar to basically this movie's version of the Slater scene in Dazed and Confused when he talks about Martha Washington, George Washington's wife, and how she grew fields of weed for him. All this stuff and aliens. Very similar in that respect, but very funny. I like that one. But my winner, Colby, my winner, because it has stayed with me and it is impossible not to think about when you have this delicacy. S'mores in Sandlot. That is my winner for the best non-baseball scene from a baseball movie. It's iconic and it's good. You're killing me, Smalls. Just all that stuff. He's like, why would I want some more something if I haven't had anything? He's just like, Porter is just amazing in that whole scene. So I remember that a lot. That whole like camp out thing is just really cozy and I like it a lot. And especially that one part. So that's my winner. What about you?
Do you remember that Will Ferrell made a baseball movie where he
Really?
went to 10 different teams and played positions in spring training? I'm just looking at baseball movies and I forgot about that. That seems like a fever dream. I did just have one. Oh, yes, I have one. It's in Benchwarmers when the guy who plays Napoleon Dynamite, John Hader, is drinking sunscreen.
Mm.
And like he's scared to go outside, so he just
Mm-hmm.
like eats sunscreen. And I just think that's so stupid and ridiculous, but that's stuck with me forever. And Benchwarmers doesn't get a lot of love, but I think it still has some redeeming qualities.
Very well said. Good nominee. You only had that one? That's it? You just
Yeah,
knew right
I
what you
didn't
were
bring
doing.
too much to the table for you there, Javi. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll help you out a little bit, but those are our two winners for the best non-baseball scene from a baseball movie. I have to admit, though, the Susan Sarandon stuff is hilarious. That's arguably one of the horniest movies ever made, honestly. That and apparently Challengers.
Well,
But
like anything with Susan Sarandon in it from
yeah,
that time.
I know, especially at that time. Shouts to her. Next up, best baseball scene from a non-baseball movie. Frankly, this might have to be a future topic of the show because there are so many. Same goes for the previous category, but let's talk about this.
You
My
go.
nominees. My nominees. This one's hard though. I don't know what my winner is. I'm gonna need your help, Sir Colby. So, first up, Dazed and Confused. Again, a movie that I've cited a lot on this podcast for some reason. Mitch Kramer pitching when he's pitching, and then Ben Affleck and all of them are about to beat the crap out of him after the game as part of the hazing. The reason why this is on here as a nominee is because the actor literally couldn't pitch, and when you know that fact, it's hilarious to watch. Just the over the shoulder thing of him going like this, and then they have to cut to the ball right into the mitt. You know what I mean? Like they had to do some movie because the kid lied. Basically, Wiley Wiggins lied that he could pitch, and I think it makes that scene so much funnier when you know that, and you can see it. I promise. Watch it again, and you'll see. Wow, they had to cover for this guy heavy. Everybody Wants Him has baseball scenes. They cover, obviously, these are actors, not professional ball players, but it's not nearly as egregious. And this one's hilarious to me, so that's a nominee. Good Will Hunting. I know. Tangentially related to it, though. Related to it. When I've been talking a lot. You get tired after a while. The story about missing the baseball game, the Red Sox game. Just him talking about that and talking about I got to go see About a Girl, which of course ends up coming full circle at the end of the movie for anyone who hasn't seen Good Will Hunting for some reason. I just love that he tells the whole thing about how that doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? He talked to his future wife, and that's what he cared about more, even though he missed one of the greatest moments in Red Sox history. And then, as a little tiny thing, the batting cage session between Matt Damon and Ben Affleck when he just throws at him, I just think is so funny. When he just starts beaming him and then they fight, and it's like you're literally like it needs to be explained. Like those are like the kid fun things that people go to with their kids before the games. And here are these two like adults like just throwing and beating each other. That's very funny. Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Sonic plays baseball by himself because he's fast. So he plays catcher, pitcher, first base, outfield, everything. He's just running around hitting the ball to himself. It's also sad because he's lonely, but still bring up that one. I wrote about this for Just Baseball, Colby. Tom Cruise in War of the Worlds has a catching scene. I recommend everyone check out my article. I'm not just doing a self plug. I guess I am, but go check that out. I basically broke down how he can't throw, similar to Mitch Kramer in Dazed and Confused, except that they don't movie magic around it. He's throwing left. He's like it's so funny, and it's also funny that it's a Boston versus New York scene. And anyway, I'm going to link that in the description because I don't want to dive too deep on it. And then what I think my last nominee, and I think my winner, is the baseball game in Twilight. One of the most batshit things of any movie of that era, I think, comes out of nowhere. And it's just like, it's not just that they're powered up. It's like they hit it out of Fenway Park and the guy can run to catch it and then throw it home. And you have that scene where Kristen Stewart's like, wow, he hit the crap out of that. And he's like, yeah, well, Edward's really fast. And he just runs across. I'm like, where are they? Sonic the Hedgehog? Like, I don't remember the vampires being that fast. As someone who doesn't know too much about that series, but I don't remember them being that fast literally for the entire rest of the series. It's only in baseball that you can hit a home run and they can run all the way down to catch it and then throw you out. So really weird. There's an entire article on this online from a website. I wish I could. I'm going to see if I can find it right now, but I think that is my potential nominee for the winner of this award. Colby, what about you?
I have two. So Richie Rich, there's a baseball scene, and Richie Rich, solid movie. I don't know if you've seen that one or if you've seen it in a while, but very, very solid movie that kind of gets overlooked. I guess just from like when I was a kid, I watched Richie Rich a few too many times. My all-time, I don't even know if this counts in this topic, Javi, but one of my all-time favorite baseball pieces of media is Bugs Bunny baseball.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know, you just got to look up Bugs Bunny baseball on YouTube. It's only like 5 minutes long and it's just incredible. Like, just Bugs Bunny's ridiculous. Throw him a slow ball, eh? And he's like doing his little voice. It's just so
Do they do the thing
ridiculous.
where you like swing and then the ball stops right when you swing and then it goes in?
Yeah,
Do
it's
they do
like,
anything like that?
well, like Sonic the Hedgehog, it's like playing first, Bugs Bunny, playing second, Bugs Bunny, playing shortstop, Bugs Bunny. It's just like, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
So pretty good winners, man. Repeat one last time for the good people, your 2 winners for both awards.
I don't remember.
Well, folks, rewind on wherever you get your podcasts from, and you can check it out. My winners are the Sandlot s'more scene for the best non-baseball scene in a baseball movie, and then for the best non-baseball scene in a baseball movie, I'm going with the Twilight baseball game. It's just look up Twilight baseball scene. I can immediately find articles on Vulture that are hilarious. There's a site dedicated to this scene. It's just ridiculous because, again, out of nowhere, they become the Flash, and I just think it's really funny and so ridiculous. And frankly, I think every superpower, any movie that has people with superpowers should have a baseball scene purely because of what they did in Twilight. So guess what? Next Spider-Man, there needs to be a baseball scene. X-Men 97, where's the baseball scene? I saw y'all playing basketball, so get to it. Next Superman, yeah, I want to see him throw the ball around the world back into Yankee Stadium for strike 3. That's what I want. Get it done, Hollywood. You want to know how you fix and save your industry? That's it. The people clamor for baseball. But Colby, after that diatribe, that is about it for today's edition of Baseball versus the World. Go check me out on Twitter if you'd like, at Javipeno, Javiipeno. You can also check out Colby on Twitter if you'd like to hear more. Oh, just awful takes, really. Just really rough stuff. At Colby_Olson3. And then go check out, of course, Just Baseball wherever you get your podcast. Go check out the website, all of that stuff, and check out Baseball versus the World on Twitter as well. It is linked in my personal bio and should be linked in the description too. So go check that out. Colby, any final words?
The one constant through all the years, Javi, has been baseball.
Excellent work. Until next time, stay golden and enjoy and love baseball.